We are learning more about deepening divisions within the nation's largest gun group. The National Rifle Association has been dealing with infighting, at least publicly, for months. But a Washington Post article out today suggests this was years in the making. The Post reports that a 2012 tragedy foreshadowed the split to come when NRA leaders disagreed about their plan of action in the wake of the Newtown massacre. Years later, divisions within the group remain. A New York Times piece out today looks at how a major donor is organizing a revolt. The benefactor says there's a network of those dissatisfied, and they are threatening to withhold millions from a, quote, radioactive leader. The reporter of that article joins me now. Danny Hakim has been following the NRA for the New York Times for quite some time. Danny, thank you so much for being with us. So this infighting within the organization has been going on publicly for a certain amount of time, but privately for even longer. Is that right?
That's right, yes. Over the last year, there's been sort of disagreements within the organization. It's come amid sort of threats of an investigation by the Attorney General's office in New York. It's really caused, a sort of a civil war in the top ranks of the organization.
And what's the crux of the power struggle right now?
Well, Wayne LaPierre, who's been the chief executive of the NRA for many years, appears to have consolidated power. Last week, the number 2 at the NRA, Christopher Cox, resigned. And before that, Oliver North, who had been the president of the NRA, stepped down. They had both been implicated by the NRA in an effort to unseat Mr. LaPierre. So it appears he's
solidified his power.
Right.
So they'd sort of been accused of trying to stage a coup.
That's right.
Both of which they deny that, right? Correct? Or at least
Mr.
publicly.
Cox denies it.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. But you spoke to donors. You spoke to one wealthy donor in particular who says he's part of a group threatening to withhold money from the organization. He says there are others like him, although no one else wanted to go on record. Is that correct? So
that's right. I talked to one other high-dollar donor, but only one went on the record.
And what are the list of demands? You talk about a list of demands that he's presented the NRA with. What's on that list of demands?
Well, the first is that LaPierre stepped down, that his senior leadership stepped down, that the NRA changes its accounting firm. They've had a lot of financial issues come up. So a really broad change of leadership heading into the 2020 election.
And the NRA recently also parted ways with the production company or the marketing company that created their NRA TV channel as well. Is that related in any way to this power struggle, or is that sort of a separate issue?
No, that's really related. It's that split with Ackerman McQueen, which is the contractor that you're referring to, their advertising firm, really sort of cascaded into this battle that's divided the NRA.
And that split with NRA TV has now meant that some of these public faces of the NRA are now no longer associated with the NRA, at least officially, correct?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah. Everyone who worked for NRA TV actually, even though they were the faces of the NRA, they worked for this contractor.
Not directly for the NRA.
That's right. That's right. So now they're all gone.
So I want to pull out a quote from your reporting. You write, "The extent of any rebellion is difficult to discern, and the NRA insisted it still had the firm backing of its donor base." Mr. LaPierre has also retained the support of the NRA's 76-member board with fewer than a handful of public defections. So has he really bolstered support of the board? Well,
it would take a 3/4 vote of the board to oust Wayne LaPierre. That's when you have a 76-member board, that's you would need a lot of members to turn against him. He's run this group for many years. So it seems
but not without controversy, at least recently. I mean, his financial dealings have come into question. The financial dealings of the organization have come into question. Their tax-exempt status is being questioned.
That's right.
So, an observer could note that Mr. LaPierre perhaps has run his course. He's been there for a long time. It's not outside of the realm of possibility for members of the board to say, thank you for your service, but maybe it's time for a new vision.
Well, it's always an issue of money, right? I mean, the NRA, they raise a lot of money, they spend a lot of money, but they've had a lot of financial strains recently. So if you really did have a number of high dollar donors turning against the leadership of the NRA, at a time when their finances are already strained, that would be a problem.
Now, we do know that there is sort of a link between the NRA and the GOP. The NRA contributes pretty directly to several Republican candidates. And we know that the president recently tweeted saying, stop the internal fighting and get back to greatness fast. So even the president is taking note. How could these issues at the NRA impact the GOP?
Well, the NRA is one of the most powerful advocates for the GOP. I went to their convention in April, and the president spoke at the convention, the vice president, Senator Ted Cruz. There's a whole litany of Republican officials. So, they've been one of their most important allies, and the president has been tweeting since April, telling them to stop the infighting. So he's clearly very worried about it.
He's clearly worried about it. Other candidates perhaps worried about it as well?
That's right.
You see that? All right.
That's right.
Danny Hakim, thank you so much for coming to tell us about your reporting.
Thanks a lot.
Great job.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.